Hi, everyone. Candace Stearns here from Take a Virtual Vacation. And Krista Alcazar, is that how you say your last name?
Yeah.
Good. Yes, here to talk about Vancouver this evening. So as we just wait, as people pop in, if you want to go in the chat and just tell us what part of the country you're from or from what country you're from, because we've had all different kinds of participation from all over the world since we've been doing this since April of this year. So as you pop in, feel free to just pop in the chat and tell us where you're from. All right, we've got John from Tampa and Mark from Maryland. Hi, John. Hi, Mark. Thanks for coming today, this evening, if you're obviously in our time zone. Hi, John. West Bend, Wisconsin. Welcome. All right. So it's a few minutes after 8 Eastern Standard Time. So let's go ahead and get started because I know we like to keep this on time for everyone. And so let me just introduce myself again. My name is Candace Stearns, and I am one of the travel advisors for the Take a Virtual Vacation group and also our meetup groups called Eat, Drink, Travel. And how we got started is back in the end of March, beginning of April, as we all were going through the pandemic, lockdowns, shutdowns, cocooning, however you want to say it. We as travel advisors could no longer go anywhere ourselves or send clients anywhere. So we decided, instead of watching the nightly news and all of the bad news, quite frankly, we wanted a more positive, fun thing for us to do. So we decided on Tuesday nights, we would work with our business development managers, our on-sites, and our tourism boards, and come up with a weekly destination where we could actually go and experience a particular part of the world that maybe we've been to before or have never been before, and share it with not only our clients, but anybody who just wanted to take a break from the regular pandemic situation in the news. So that's how Take a Virtual Vacation was born. And we've been holding these webinars since April, and we're going to continue to hold them into the new year. We will be making some format changes for those of you that have been with us for a while. Those of you who are brand new and this is your first virtual vacation, welcome. So you'll be seeing that every Tuesday. We have been holding these virtual vacations, but at the beginning of the year, we're going to be changing the format a little bit to every other week, and we'll be mixing in some more interactive stuff for those of you that want to be part of a cooking class or a wine tasting or any other type of ideas that we might have. So if you have ideas and you want to pop them in the chat, feel free to do that. You'll see on the screen those travel advisors that have been part of the program. Maria Stephanopoulos, who's from Ingenious Travel, Susan Schaefer from Ships and Trips Travel, Barbara Oliver, who is on the West Coast with Gail Sherman, and Barbara's from All Together Travel, and Gail Sherman is from Wine Lovers Travel. Myself, my travel agency is called Stay Balanced Travel, and then Angela Urshawood from Olive and Atlas Travel Design. And we have a couple of places you can find us on the internet. Obviously, the Take a Virtual Vacation Facebook page, as well as the YouTube channel, which is where all of these virtual vacations have been recorded and also put up on the channel. So you can watch them all the way back to April if you so choose. Specific destinations like Antarctica and Chile and all different kinds are out there for you to watch. But you can also join us on our meetup groups. And when we finally are allowed to meet again in groups for more than 6 people or 10 people or whatever your rule is right now, we have some meetup groups. The meetup group, Eat, Drink, Travel, as I mentioned, there's one in Greater Tampa Bay that Maria is the director of. And then there's one in Middle Tennessee that Susan Schaefer heads up. The one in Detroit, which is where I'm from, is my group that I will be having meet and greets, hopefully at the beginning of the year. And then Angela Urshawood has one in Lake County, Wisconsin. So I'm going to take all of this information you see on the screen and put it in the chat. That way you guys will have it that you can save after the end of the meeting. But now I'm going to get ready to turn the meeting over to Krista so she can take us to the virtual vacation for Vancouver. So Krista, thank you so much for being willing to share your time with us. And if you'd like to share your screen and start the presentation, that would be great.
All right. Well, thank you so much for having me. It's great to be here today to be able to speak with all of you and share a bit of Vancouver with you, hopefully give you some ideas of what you can do in Vancouver eventually when you have an opportunity to travel into Canada in the future. My name is Krista Alcazar and I work at Tourism Vancouver, and I actually grew up in Vancouver. I've lived here my whole life, so it's always great when I get to share my home city with other people. So today I'll give you an overview of some of the experiences that you can enjoy in Vancouver and some of the reasons why people really love to come and explore this city. Starting off with the fact that Vancouver is a modern city situated in nature. So it's surrounded by the Pacific Ocean, we're right in a temperate rainforest, and we have the mountains right in the city. So this gives visitors a unique opportunity to enjoy all of the great amenities that a city has to offer. You know, great hotels and restaurants and shopping, but of course, tons of outdoor nature experiences as well. And it's really all about getting outside and enjoying the nature in Vancouver. So when you actually arrive into Vancouver, it's really easy to get in from the airport into downtown Vancouver. We have something called the Canada Line, which is part of our public transit system. And it's very easy to find the train at the airport. There's signs everywhere. And it takes only 26 minutes to get from the airport right into downtown. And there's 3 stops across the downtown core. So depending on where you're staying, which hotel you're at, there should be a station within walking distance. And the other great feature in our transit system now is you can actually just tap your credit card through the system and it'll automatically calculate the cheapest fare for the journey you're making. So when you're with your luggage and you don't want to have to line up and buy a ticket, it's much, much easier. You can just tap your way through the system, which is very convenient. Now, one of the great things to know about Vancouver is it's a very compact downtown core. So it's actually a very walkable destination. We were actually rated Canada's most walkable city by Walk Score for that exact reason. Generally, you can walk from one end of the city to the other in about 30 to 45 minutes. So when you do visit Vancouver, you don't need to worry about having a rental car to get around the city. It's just very easy to walk, or you can easily take a really short taxi or utilize one of our sightseeing companies because it is a very small downtown area. And one of the great things to know about the downtown area as well is it's a lot of these high-rise buildings that you see in the photo are residential buildings. So there's a lot of people living right downtown Vancouver, which gives a great vibe for people visiting. It doesn't, feel deserted at the end of the workday. Everybody goes home. It's actually, lots of people out and about enjoying their evening. Now this is a map of downtown Vancouver, and I just wanted to give you a bit of a lay of the land as to what we have downtown. It is a small area, but we do have very distinct neighborhoods within that downtown core. So we have areas like Yaletown, which are kind of on the south part of the downtown core, which is kind of a trendy residential neighborhood. And it used to be an old warehouse district where they've converted a lot of the old warehouses into restaurants with really great patios. It has a very fun, unique vibe in the restaurant scene. Then you have areas like Gastown, which is our historic neighborhood. That's where Vancouver actually originated. But now it's become kind of this hipster neighborhood with lots of great boutique shops and cafes and different stores you can go and browse through. We have, of course, the Canada Place, which is where our cruise ships come in, and that faces the mountains. So you get great views of the mountains from Canada Place as well. And then you have Robson Street, which is famous for our shopping area. And then you have the West End, which is a very residential neighborhood in the city. So really we're surrounded by water, and you can see, and from any angle, you'll have great views of the ocean and mountains. We are very much a four-season destination. So while many of our neighbors across Canada will have snow in the wintertime, we actually have very mild temperatures. So starting off with the winter, we have very, very warm temperatures. We don't get a lot of snow. Typically, it might snow once or twice in the winter, and usually just for a day or two, and then it warms back up. So that's kind of nice for exploring the destination during the winter season. However, we do have 3 local mountains right in the city that do get snow. So you can go skiing and snowboarding and snowshoeing and all those fun winter activities. Then we have, of course, spring when we have our Cherry Blossom Festival. That usually happens around late March, early April. And that can be a beautiful time of year to visit just because all of the flowers are blooming. We have some warmer weather at that point. And what's unique about the month of March is that while we have our cherry blossoms blooming, only an hour and a half away in Whistler, which is one of the most famous ski resorts in North America, you can go skiing. So you can kind of do this combination of a ski holiday with cherry blossoms and kind of a spring experience in the city. And then in the fall, it's a very beautiful time of year as well, where all of the leaves are changing colors. The temperatures are usually still very nice. We get a lot of sunny days in September, sometimes even into October as well. So that can be a nice time of year to visit, especially because it's a little bit less busy than our summer season. Also, the summer season is great because we have lots of great outdoor activities. That's when we get our warmest weather. Usually August would be the hottest month that we get with the driest temperatures, but it's still mild in comparison to other parts of Canada. So we don't get the really extreme heat that some areas can get. We're also a very bike-friendly city. So we have up to 311 kilometers of bike routes throughout the downtown core. So it's very easy to navigate around by bike. You can either rent a bike, or some of the hotels also include free bike rentals with your stay. So that's something just to look out for. But generally, it's a great way to get around and see the city, very safe to do so with designated bike lanes. And you can even do some really great cycling tours if you prefer more of a guided experience where you want to have some commentary given along the way. Then you can book a tour with a company called Cycle City Tours. And they do a beautiful tour of Stanley Park. They also do a big grand tour focusing on all the neighborhoods in the city. And then in the summer months, they even have an evening night tour because the days are much longer in the summer. So you can go out in the evening and do a nice bike tour of some of the neighborhoods as well as some of our beaches as well. So both options, you can do it on your own or if you want a guided experience. Now, Stanley Park is definitely a must-see, especially if it's your first time to Vancouver. It's our huge public park, and it's 1,001 acres. It's actually 10% larger than New York Central Park, and it's a second growth temperate rainforest. So it's a beautiful location right in the city. You can walk right into it from downtown. And you'll see a little pathway along the perimeter of the park in the photo, and that's our seawall. So that's a paved pathway where you can go cycling, you can go walking or running. It's probably one of my favorite things to do in the city is just to grab a bike and go cycle around Stanley Park. It's just so beautiful. You get views of the city, views of the mountains. You pass by some of our local beaches on the way. And it takes about an hour on average to go the whole perimeter of the park. Now, of course, being right on the ocean, there's tons of different water activities that you can do. Right in the city, you can go kayaking or canoeing, stand-up paddleboarding. We have an area called False Creek where the water is very, very calm. And it's a great spot to do things like paddleboarding because you're not going to get knocked over by waves all the time. And you can enjoy the great views of the city around you, which is quite nice. We also have whale watching. Our whale watching season is usually from May through October. And there are several different companies that you can go out on a whale watching tour with right from downtown Vancouver. A lot of them you'll see orca whales, humpback whales, different types of porpoises, seals, different birds. So lots of different wildlife that you can see, and really informative too. You'll definitely learn something about all of the wildlife on those tours. And then we have in the bottom left of your screen, we have a company called Sewell's Marina Sea Safari. And this is a 2-hour Zodiac boat tour right from near Vancouver, and it's in an area called West Vancouver. And you go out into the fjord of Howe Sound, and it's just a beautiful scenic location right on the water, the mountains surrounding you. And it's not a whale watching tour, but you do see some wildlife while you're on the tour. So different types of birds, seals. They always go out to Seal Rock where all the seals hang out. So you get to have those views and take pictures. So that's a really nice option too if you just want to get out on the boat and have some great scenery and something to do out on the water. And of course, we have lots of different city attractions and museums that you can check out. In the top left, we have the Museum of Anthropology. They have a beautiful gallery of First Nations story poles. They're absolutely beautiful, and you can do tours as well, and the staff can give some information about them, which I find is really the best way to learn about them and understand the culture. And then there's a huge gallery with artifacts from all over the world. They have quite an extensive number of pieces in their collection, so that can also be a really interesting gallery to check out. And they also have some local First Nations art from one of our local artists called Bill Reed, who is a famous Haida artist. So he has some of his pieces in their gallery. And then on the top right, we have Science World, which is a really popular family-friendly attraction. It's an interactive science center. So kids love it because they can basically go there and play the whole time, but also be learning about science. And they have a huge IMAX theater as well inside, so you can go and catch an IMAX film in there. On the bottom right, we have Flyover Canada. And this is one of our most popular attractions in the city, located right at Canada Place, where the cruises come in. And this is a virtual flight ride from the east coast of Canada to the west coast. So you see 17 different landscapes and all 4 seasons. And you have different extrasensory effects. You have wind and you have mist and different scents coming at you as you're flying across the country, just to, really enhance the experience. So the whole show itself is 30 minutes long, but that includes a pre-show, boarding time, and then an 8-minute virtual flight ride experience. And if any of you have been to California Adventure, you have I think it's Soarin' Over the World is one of the rides. It's kind of a similar experience. I think that one's about 4 minutes long. So this one's 8 minutes, a bit longer. And the seating arrangement is a bit different, but definitely very cool. And you do feel like you are flying over the country, which is cool. Then we also have the Vancouver Lookout, which is our lookout tower. You can get a 360-degree view of the city from above. And what's great about going up into the lookout is you can go up during the day and kind of get your bearings. It's a great place to go when you're just first in the city and you're not sure where everything is. You go up there and you can see everything from above. Their staff are great at answering any questions or pointing out different landmarks for you. And then you can actually use your ticket to come back at nighttime and see the whole city at night and see all the lights throughout the city, which can be quite nice as well. And of course, we have lots of great parks and gardens. So I mentioned Stanley Park already. There's lots of things to do in the park outside of just cycling. You can actually play cricket. There's cricket pitches, there's mini golf, there's a pitch and putt, there are restaurants, there are playgrounds for children. Some of the beaches are located in Stanley Park, so lots of different things you can do there. We also have our Dr. Sun Yat-sen Classical Chinese Gardens, which is kind of like this little oasis right in downtown Vancouver, because you go in and it's just so serene and tranquil and beautiful. You almost feel like you're not even in a city when you're in the garden. And it's a very interesting attraction because they actually built the whole gardens with all the materials brought over from China. And they didn't use any nails or hammers or anything to build it. And everything was designed with masculine and feminine pieces. So the yin and the yang, and they do some tours throughout the day that you can join for free with your ticket. And they explain everything of how it was made and all the different meanings and the significance behind all of the pieces used in the gardens. And if you want to, you can also take part in a afternoon tea at the gardens as well, which is a nice experience. And then we have other parks and gardens you can explore. We have Van Dusen Botanical Gardens, as well as Queen Elizabeth Park. And these are great spots as well. You can just go for a walk and enjoy the scenery and bring a picnic and, you know, enjoy a nice, beautiful day outside. Now, I mentioned we have 3 local mountains right in the city. We have Mount Seymour, Grouse Mountain, and Cypress Mountain. Grouse Mountain will be the one I'll focus on today, but all 3 during the winter time offer skiing, snowboarding, and snowshoeing. At Grouse Mountain, it's actually a year-round paid attraction. So you take this big sky ride up to the top of the mountain. There are all kinds of different activities that you can do up there. So once you're up at the top, you can do all kinds of things like see Grinder and Kula, the 2 resident grizzly bears that have lived there for about 20 years now. They were orphaned as cubs and they wouldn't have survived on their own. And so fortunately, Grouse Mountain said, hey, we've got all this land here on the mountain. Why can't they just, you know, hang out there and be safe? So they have a huge 5.5 acre habitat there. And yeah, they pretty much live the good life as grizzly bears. Lots of space for them. And, you know, they have a fence, you know, of course, keeping them enclosed, but it's very natural. So you get this very unique opportunity to see bears very close, much closer than you would ever want to see them in the wild. And it's just fascinating. I mean, I could watch them for hours. They're so entertaining and just a great opportunity to learn about them as well, because they do ranger talks throughout the day. And they also offer a cool experience called Breakfast with the Bears, where a ranger meets you at the bottom of the mountain, takes you up on the sky ride, they take you over to the bear habitat, they do a ranger talk, and then they have a yurt set up right next to the grizzly bear habitat where you can have a hot buffet breakfast. So that's kind of a cool way to start off your morning in Vancouver. They've also added something called Aerial Ropes Adventure, which is basically a huge jungle gym in the trees. They have a version for adults as well as a smaller version for younger children. So it is a family-friendly activity. So this is something kind of fun that you can climb your way through all the trees at Grouse. We also have a 5-line zipline course. So this is something you can do year-round, but May through October is when you can do all 5 lines. In the winter time, they reduce it down to 3 just because there's some areas that are a bit more challenging to get to when it's covered in snow. But it's a pretty cool experience. One of the lines is really, really long and you can see all the views of the city from above. And it takes about 2.5 hours in total to do the whole circuit. You go in tandem, so you can go side by side with your family or your friend. And a guide goes with you the whole time and walks you through how it all works. So that's kind of a fun experience if you're into more of the adrenaline type of activities. And then there are also some different performance and entertainment shows that go on. So they have a lumberjack show where 2 lumberjacks are competing against one another. They're doing axe throwing and climbing up different poles and all kinds of activities. And it's meant to be more of a comedy, kind of a family-friendly show to watch. And then they also have their Birds of Motion demonstration where they have barn owls and different types of birds that they bring out, and they do talks about these birds so you can learn a little bit more about them. And that's offered from May through October. They've also added mountain biking. I mean, we have the mountains and you can certainly go mountain biking on many different trails on the North Shore. So Grouse now has some designated trails and they have bikes available that you can rent, and you can also book a guided mountain biking tour if you'd like to do that. And then at the very top of the mountain, you have something called Eye of the Wind. And this is our wind turbine, and you can see it from in downtown Vancouver. It's this little white wind turbine in the middle of the mountain. And you can actually take an elevator from the base up to the top into a 360-degree view pod. And that's pretty much the highest point you can go in Vancouver. You can see everything from up there. So it's a pretty cool experience to go up right into the middle of the wind turbine. Then of course in winter we have skiing, snowboarding, we have tubing, different kind of winter activities happening. But one of the things I think is really cool about skiing in Vancouver is that you can actually see the city as you're going down the slopes. And there's not that many places in the world where you can do that. And we also have night skiing. So you can actually go skiing until 10 o'clock at night and see all the twinkling lights of the city below as you go down the hill. So that's something kind of unique as well. And then for the month of December, we have the peak of Christmas. So this is where Santa Claus comes with his reindeer, and there's a Santa Claus breakfast, and you have ice skating, different kind of Christmas carols happening. So lots of festive things going on for the month of December. It's pretty much turned into the North Pole. And they have this beautiful light walk where you can either rent snowshoes or do a guided tour. And the walkway is through the forest, through all the trees, but it's all lit up with Christmas lights. It looks really beautiful. So that's something that's nice to do. Just go for a walk through the light walk. And I mentioned the zip lining. So this is totally available in the winter time. It is just 3 lines during that time of year, but can still be a really exhilarating experience. And there are lots of different dining facilities. So everything from a casual cafe where you can just grab and go, a cafeteria style restaurant. There's also another one that's more of a pub style where you sit down and eat at the table and you get great views of the city below, like in the photo that you see. And then they also have a fine dining restaurant called the Observatory. So that's something available too throughout the year. Now, being in a temperate rainforest, of course, we have beautiful trails you can go walking on, lots of different hikes you can do. And there's a company called Rockwood Adventures that do some really fabulous nature tours. They start off in Stanley Park, and then they actually take guests up to the North Shore and talk about all the flora and fauna, all the different types of trees we have, the significance of them, how they've been used over the years. It's quite fascinating. And then they take you to the salmon fish hatchery, and you get to actually see the salmon trying to make their way up the river, and they give some commentary about how that works and all of the details about it. So it's quite an educational experience and very interesting to learn about the nature that you're seeing. And then of course we have Capilano Suspension Bridge Park, which is probably one of our most famous attractions. It's only 5 minutes down the road from Grouse Mountain, so it's very popular to do those 2 attractions together. And Capilano is really famous for this suspension bridge. You know, that's kind of how it got started. But since then, they've done an amazing job at really building out the park, and there's so many other attractions now that you can explore. It is a family-owned business, which I think is great. They've owned it for multiple generations actually now, so it's been in the family for a long time. And they've added some new additions, like a new restaurant serving all local beer and wine and local food as well. They have a really amazing gift shop too. So if you're kind of like scoping out where should I buy my souvenirs, that's probably a really good spot to do it. And they do have a free shuttle that runs year round from Canada Place. So it's really easy to get up to Capilano. You can just hop on their free shuttle. And so once you cross the big bridge, you get over to the other side of the river and you encounter something called Treetops Adventures. And this is a series of 7 mini suspension bridges high up in the trees. You get a completely different perspective of the park from up above. So that's quite cool. And then they also have added something called Cliff Walk. And this is a narrow walkway cantilevered to the side of the cliff overlooking the Capilano River. And this attraction is all about the power of water because many, many years ago, this canyon was actually carved by glacier water. So there's some interactive display areas that talk about all of the different facts and information about the power of water. And then for the month of December, they do something called Canyon Lights, where they light up the whole park with Christmas lights. So it's quite spectacular. They stay open in the evenings. It's really popular with locals to go up there every year. It's kind of like an annual tradition. You go up and check out Canyon Lights. So that's something available as well. Now, after all those activities, certainly you're going to need to eat. So we definitely have a great food scene in Vancouver, lots of different types of cuisine, and also culinary tours, which are a really fun way to explore the food scene in Vancouver. I think we have a lot of access to fresh local cuisine right in Vancouver, and a lot of the chefs love to use local ingredients. And so you can actually do a foodie tour, which is a 2-hour tasting experience right in Granville Island Public Market, which I've also got a photo there for you. And Granville Island is a really unique area, a neighborhood in Vancouver, where the island and all the businesses on it are actually managed by the federal government of Canada. So you won't see any big brand chains on Granville Island. It's all local businesses. It's a very authentic experience. There's a huge public market, and you have lots of local vendors selling local products. So the 2-hour tasting experience goes into the public market, and you get to meet some of the local vendors, get to know their stories, do some tastings of some of their favorite things that they sell. And it is enough food to be a meal. So definitely you could do that instead of lunch, go and do a great culinary tour. And Vancouver Foodie Tours also offers another one called the Gastronomic Gastown Tour. And this is focused on our historic neighborhood, and it's more of a progressive dine around experience. You actually go into the restaurants, sit down and have a tasting, have a beverage paired with it, and you go to 4 different restaurants. So again, definitely enough food to be a meal, but a great way to not have to choose just one restaurant, and you can actually go to several and explore them. Now we also have float planes in Vancouver. This is a really popular way to get in and out of Vancouver into other areas within British Columbia. So, and they even have some really cool culinary experiences. You can do something called a fly and dine, where you take a float plane from Vancouver, you fly over the city, fly and see some of the mountains, and then you land at Bowen Island, and you get off the float plane and you go to a restaurant right on the water and have a beautiful 3-course meal right there. Beautiful views of the ocean. Get back on the float plane and they'll take you back to downtown Vancouver. So something kind of nice, maybe if you have a special occasion you're celebrating or you just want to do something different. But they do connect to many other locations. You can fly from Vancouver to Victoria on Vancouver Island. You can fly to Nanaimo. You can fly to Tofino. And they even started flying to Seattle. So hopefully that will resume again once things open up again. But lots of different ways. And I often recommend, like, if you are exploring more than just Vancouver, the float plane would be a great consideration just in how you connect to other cities. And then we have Sky Helicopters. Now, of course, they provide helicopter tours, but they do some really cool packages, really different. They have some proposal packages. They have celebration packages. They even have a craft beer tour. So they actually will pick you up in the helicopter, fly you over into the mountains, land in a very remote, beautiful nature location. You get out and then you actually do a beer tasting right there in the middle of nature. And then of course, fly back to the city afterwards. So lots of different options you can consider. And then we have Evergreen Adventures. This is one of our local sightseeing companies, and they really specialize in private guided tours. So if you and your family want to go maybe and do a private experience, they have a range of different tours and different itineraries they can offer. Everything from just like a general city tour of Vancouver. They can take you over to Vancouver Island, over to Victoria, or up to Whistler. But they also have a unique tour that goes into the Fraser Valley to do wine tasting. And the Fraser Valley is kind of our agricultural area near Vancouver. So you drive out there and do different tastings at the wineries. They include a charcuterie board and lunch for you. And you can even upgrade if you want to have a helicopter transfer rather than the vehicle out to the Fraser Valley. So that's a great company. And if you are doing kind of like a Alpine Lakes and Glacier tour where you do a city tour and then you have the float plane, they fly up into the glaciers, land on a glacier lake. You get out and you can have a picnic right there on the side of the water and just enjoy the views. So they can do picnic add-ons to any type of tour that you are doing with them. And then just near the airport, we do have the MacArthur Glen Designer Outlet Mall. So this is offering, discounted prices on a lot of the top brands, and it is a European designer chain. This is accessible right from the Canada line that I mentioned earlier. And actually between this station that it's at and the airport is complimentary to go on the Canada line. So you have time to kill before your flight and you're like, okay, what should I do? You can always pop over to MacArthur Glen Designer Outlet and have a wander around there. And there are food and beverage outlets there that you can grab a bite to eat or have a coffee or something as well. Now, accommodation, a lot of people will ask questions like, okay, well, where should I stay? There's, what's a good area to stay in? Well, really, looking at the map of downtown, it is quite compact. So you're not really going to be in a bad location. You're going to be close to everything, no matter where you stay. Generally, what I would say is if you're looking for water views, that kind of waterfront view in Vancouver, then you'll want to stay at a property a little bit closer to the water. A lot of properties that are located near Canada Place will have those great mountain and ocean views. Otherwise, if you don't need that and you maybe prefer just a city view, you can stay right in the city center and you'll be in walking distance to everything. So really there's not a bad location in downtown Vancouver. And we do have quite a variety of different hotels. So if you want more of a longer stay with a kitchen, definitely we have several different properties that offer kitchens in their units. We have hotels that are all suite hotels. We have everything from 3 to 4 to 5-star properties. So it really just depends on what you're looking for, but there really should be something for everyone depending on what your needs are. And generally we recommend about 3 to 4 nights in Vancouver. As you can see, there are tons of different activities to do in Vancouver, and it often happens where people will come in for like a day or maybe one night. They get there and they're like, oh my gosh, I didn't know there was so much to do in Vancouver. I wish I had stayed longer. So we generally recommend as a minimum 3 to 4 nights just to make sure you have enough time to see and do everything. And we have received our Safe Travel stamp by the WTTC. So that means that as a destination, we are committed to following all of the COVID protocols, all of the health orders that are in place. So you can feel comfortable when you eventually visit Vancouver that those are being followed, and that's something that we're committed to. So thank you so much for your time. It was great to be able to share a little bit about Vancouver with you tonight. And I hope that it gives you some ideas for your future travels, but hopefully you can come visit us in the future.
Thank you, Krista. I really appreciate all the information that you were able to give us this evening. And a few people had asked if they can ask some questions, but before I give an opportunity for people to open it up and ask questions, first, those of you who want to just put some questions in the chat, feel free to do that. Those of you who want me to open your mic and have the availability to ask the questions yourself, that was one of the things that was asked early on, and I put in the chat. As long as we had enough time and not lots and lots of questions, I would be happy to do that. But a couple of the questions that we've already received from the Q&A portion was when you think the Canadian government is going to be opening, because this is each and every week we're trying to put out destination specific information about when US citizens can come across. Now, being in Detroit, I have relatives in Canada and we've not been able to see each other. So have you heard anything from the government as far as, because vaccines are now becoming more readily available. The UK is already ginning out the vaccine. China and Russia are currently giving the vaccine, and we soon will be, to our first responders this month. So have you heard anything from the Canadian government?
I haven't heard anything specific. I think it's the magical question that we're all wondering is, when is this, border closure that we've been sharing for all these months going to finally end? And I think certainly the vaccine is a huge step forward in that regard. I think all these months, our government's been very, very cautious and trying to put the safety of Canadians first. And I know in particular with the US border, they review that on a monthly basis, whereas I think the international travel is looked at separately. So usually it'll be a month to month. So I believe at the current moment it's closed until December 21st, but they would usually extend that again another month as they get closer to that deadline. But I do think that the vaccine is a huge step forward. And I think as we start to get vaccinated locally in Canada, and as it also starts to happen, across different countries and in the US, I'm hoping that that will mean that, eventually if you've had a vaccine, maybe that's how it starts, is people who've had it can enter. I'm not sure exactly how they're going to approach it, but we're kind of estimating that by late spring, early summer, hopefully we'll have some openings. But yeah, we don't have anything concrete at this point in time, unfortunately.
Yeah, that's the typical response we've been getting.
It's hard, but if you find out, let me know, because I would love to know too.
Yeah.
We're patiently waiting.
Yeah, and for those of you on this evening, you can reach out to any of us TAs for actual destinations US citizens can travel to now. Obviously, Mexico, Costa Rica, the Maldives, different countries in the Caribbean. PCR COVID-19 negative tests are required in most of the areas, but not all. And local travel from state to state in the US are obviously dependent on each state government, but that's always one of the things I lead with now. So there's some other questions in the chat box. John asked a few questions. What area is considered Vancouver Island, and what is there, or did you mention in specific to the island that's separate from the city proper?
Right, so Vancouver Island, it's a bit hard to show without a map in front, but if you look at the province of BC, Vancouver will be located kind of in the middle of the province at the very south part of the mainland that we call it. And right in front of it is a long island. It's a big island. So that's called Vancouver Island. And then there are lots of other smaller islands off the coast. So yeah, so Vancouver Island is the big one if you're looking on a map, just south of Vancouver.
Great. Thanks so much for that. And I know personally, I'm a foodie, and those of you who've been part of the Take a Virtual Vacation or Eat, Drink, Travel meetup in Detroit know that I'm a huge culinary person. I plan group trips for foodies and wine and beer and all things related to whatever we can experience while we're here on this earth. And I know Vancouver has at least 10 Michelin star restaurants. So when someone is deciding to go to Vancouver, you mentioned there's several different touring companies and things that they can travel to, obviously. And you mentioned there's specifically areas of the city that they can go to.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, the restaurants are kind of peppered throughout the downtown area. So, Yaletown is one neighborhood that is concentrated with several restaurants, and it's kind of a great location to plan to go to maybe one of your nights while you're in Vancouver. Mm-hmm. They have one of the top rated restaurants in the city, which is called Blue Water Cafe. Mm-hmm. And one of the things that we have easy access to is fresh seafood. So you'll notice a lot of our restaurants will have really amazing seafood dishes, and that's what Blue Water Cafe specializes in. You can get the big seafood towers, you can get amazing fresh caught salmon and sable fish and all kinds of yummy things. So definitely that restaurant is very popular right in Yaletown. Also, sushi is very popular with access to fresh seafood. You have everything from, you know, your more affordable sushi that's still super fresh to your kind of really high-end sushi restaurants. So depending on which we're going for, there's lots of different options, and that's really popular with locals. But we have everything. I mean, we're also very multicultural. So
Sure.
we have restaurants from all different types of cuisine. You can go to a steakhouse, you can go for Italian, you can do all kinds of different types of
Very much
cuisine.
like the Detroiters, we have every nationality represented. So one of the questions is, when I actually land in a city that I've never been to before, I talk to the cab driver or, you know, whoever's taking me to and from, you know, the airport, and I always ask them, and John asked this question too, what is your favorite restaurant and local food area that you specifically like? I'm a local, you got to go here.
Okay. So yeah, definitely that's a tough one because there's so many. It's kind of like, what do I feel like tonight? But definitely I would say, well, I love sushi, so I will go to, there's two sister restaurants. They're owned by the same company. One's called Miku and one's called Minami. And so one's in Yaletown and one's in Cole Harbor, right by Canada Place. So both have very similar menus. A lot of the menu items are the same. So that would definitely be one of my favorites. They're just amazing.
Okay. And Paul Gordon had asked, are you aware of any, because you guys are right on the water in your location, are you aware of any houseboat rental or other unique accommodations that guests can book into if they're interested in having more of a unique experience when it comes to their accommodations?
Definitely, yeah. I mean, there's lots of boat rental companies, and I think they vary in the types of boats they have. Some of them are just meant for kind of day use or fishing, but certainly there would be, you know, boats that you could rent and actually sleep in overnight and do a bit of a longer itinerary, maybe out to some of the islands between Vancouver and Vancouver Island. Also, too, it's more popular for actual houseboats. Up in the Okanagan region, which is a few hours out of Vancouver, where we have a lot of lakes. So people will do more of the houseboating experience on the lakes versus in Vancouver on the ocean. So yeah, I don't see a ton of houseboats right in Vancouver, but certainly you can rent boats and have your own kind of sailing experience from Vancouver.
So recommending like a, you know, 2 to 3 night stay in Vancouver, and then going further north, you mentioned, is where you could have that kind of experience.
Exactly. Yeah. So Okanagan, there's Okanagan Lake. So there's different providers that can offer houseboats. It's much more common and much more availability in those areas to do the houseboating experience.
Sure. Well, great. So I think we got the majority of the questions answered, and I appreciate everyone hopping on this evening. Again, I put in the chat the information about us for Take a Virtual Vacation, the Eat, Drink, Travel meetups. And we will be having next week a special edition of Take a Virtual Vacation, where I share with you my Maldivian vacation that I just went on with my husband for our 20th wedding anniversary. We went to the Maldives. We left on the 24th of October, and we were in the Maldives all the way through November 6th. And I'll be sharing with you all things related to the Indian Ocean, the Maldivian people, the culture, the atolls, all kinds of wonderful things that are more overwater bungalow-ish. So that's what we're going to be doing next week. So take a look for that in the Facebook groups and the meetup groups. Those of you who want more information about how to find us again, that information is in the chat box. And if you look at the chat, box, there's 3 little dots in the lower right-hand corner. When you click on that, there's something called Save Your Chat, and you can hit Save Chat, and that'll have all the information that you've seen come up in the chat. And you can save it to your desktop and have the information for the future. And again, Krista, I really appreciate you spending your evening or early afternoon with us, and see you all next week on Take a Virtual Vacation.
Thanks very much.
Thank you.